What's going on, you guys? Welcome on back to the channel. Now, the newest chapter of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex just dropped recently, and honestly, man, this is a really good chapter. This is one of those chapters, in my opinion, that exists solely to set up things for the future. And honestly, that's what I feel like a lot of this arc has been setting up things for the future that are going to pay dividends within this arc. And honestly, I think this was the final chapter that is going to be doing that. This is the final chapter that is bringing these storylines to the forefront, and everything's going to be crescendoing within these next couple chapters. So I kind of just wanted to make this video to pretty much talk about this chapter and why it's setting things up so perfectly. So first and foremost, I could talk about the Boruto and Momoshiki stuff, but I'm going to save that for the end because that's going to be the longest section of this video. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the interrogation itself, right? The interrogation is honestly such an interesting plot point within the narrative right now for me because I like how it's being sprinkled within the entirety of the arc, right? This is an interrogation that has been going on for multiple chapters now, and the interrogation looks like it's about to crescendo within the next chapter. And my reasoning for that is now that they're about to summon Shikamaru into the interrogation room, how is this going to change everything? Because the only way that the interrogation could have ended without things changing drastically is if Shikamaru wasn't brought in, and if Shikamaru wasn't put on the feudal lord's radar. But now that he's on their radar, they're going to bring Shikamaru in now for interrogation. And with Shikamaru being brought in for the interrogation, this is probably going to cause a ripple effect for this entire mission, because the whole reason why this mission is going off without a hitch right now is one, because of Inojin, and two, because Shikamaru is at the center of everything, right? He's the one that's directing Boruto to go to these coordinates, Kawaki to go to these coordinates, right? Shikamaru is essentially at the forefront of this entire mission, directing everybody where to go. If we lose Shikamaru from his position where he is right now, it's going to throw everything off its axis. So you take Shikamaru out, you bring him into an interrogation room. What does that look like? And especially now with Shikamaru like in an interrogation situation, this is going to bring a lot of things to the forefront. Like, what is Sai going to do? Is Sai going to have to choose a side? Because Sai, in my opinion, I thought Sai was actually on Shikamaru's side. That's not the case, right? He is still firmly against Boruto and still views him as the enemy. So Sai, I feel like, is going to have to make the ultimate choice of, does he support Shikamaru or does he support like the land of fire, right? Like, what is he going to choose? So that's one thing. But Shikamaru getting brought in now, it brings a lot of what I was saying about Shikamaru in the past very closer to coming to fruition, because I've been saying now since the very beginning of Two Blue Vortex, or for a while now, Shikamaru is a character that is not long for the world of Two Blue Vortex. And what I mean by that is the Nara curse, right? Throughout the entirety of the Naruto franchise, the Nara have been cursed to some degree. Like, Shikamaru lost not only his mentor, but he lost his father, right? So Shikamaru, I feel like, is now going to have to go through a similar experience where his son is now going to have to experience the loss of his father. So the Nara clan is cursed in that extent. So I do think, like, Shikamaru, he might not die coming up soon, but like I said, I do think Shikamaru is not going to be long for the world of Two Blue Vortex. I think if any character is going to drop, it would be him. And Shikamaru dying would be honestly the biggest thing for the story, because you think about it, that's Boruto's like biggest confidant and like source of intel within the Leaf, and like close like just ally in the village. That would be gone, right? Boruto wouldn't have that anymore. So Boruto would immediately have to leave the village again. And then it creates just a whole ripple effect throughout the entire series. So I'm very curious now to see what's going on with Shikamaru. I think he's the most interesting character now to follow within the series, aside from Boruto. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next and where this interrogation is going to go. I think the interrogation is going to be so great coming up in these next couple chapters. Now, moving on from Shikamaru, the next thing that I want to talk about is Kashin Koji. Now, at the very end of this chapter, we saw Inojin like pretty much gas that Team 10 was able to take out a bunch of Momoshiki clones, and he was like, oh man, this is going easy so far. And then it pans to Kashin Koji looking contemplative. And in my opinion, I think that's Kashin Koji seeing that the future has been changed a little bit. What does that mean? What like kind of scenario did he see? What I think is, I think Jura might be getting implemented into this fight, right? I think Jura is going to either fight the Momoshiki clones because he's grown to really appreciate the Leaf Village, or he's going to team up with Momoshiki and like fight our protagonists. So really, oh man, it's gonna Kashin Koji's whole thing. Like that's the thing with Kashin Koji. He could have saw anything, right? So anything could be happening right now that is changing the like sequence of events, right? We know from like the beginning of the arc that he saw this fight like going one way. What could possibly be implemented that changes the entire like structure of this fight, right? So I do think Jura is the wild card here of how the entire arc could be like turned on its head, right? So I'm really looking forward to seeing where that goes. There's so many things that Kashin Koji could have seen that changes everything. Like Himawari possibly dying, who knows? Maybe somebody on Team 10 dying, or like just anybody dying. Who knows what could happen, man? That's what I like about like Kashin Koji. With him, he could have saw anything, and it could be any of it could be compelling. That's what's great about Kashin Koji. So, dude, like I really am looking forward to seeing like why Kashin Koji is looking contemplative like that. I think that's going to be brought to the forefront next chapter, right? I do see things starting to like slowly start falling apart within the next chapter because, like Inojin said, it's been pretty easy so far. And what I think this means is things are going to start changing rapidly within the fight because this has been very easy so far. They've kind of just been blitzing the Momoshiki clones. So I do think something has to give and something has to change. And what is the perfect X factor that could change everything? You add in Jura. That's what I think is going to be happening in the next chapter. Jura might like be integrated within the arc more. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about with this chapter is Boruto and the Jougan. Now, throughout like when this chapter was dropping, man, the main thing that I was seeing was Jougan is decanonized and the Jougan is filler. Now, this is probably going to be the rest of this video, man, but just because Boruto is using the Byakugan, that does not mean the Jougan is decanonized. And my main reasoning for thinking this is the first time where Boruto has used the Byakugan and it actually says Byakugan, right? And like the Jougan and Byakugan are so similar in terms of design that I feel like they finally just had to put Byakugan there. But the main thing too is in Boruto and Momoshiki's conversation, where Boruto is basically telling Momoshiki, I'm not reneging on our deal. If you help me, you can have entire control of my body. Like, it's yours, right? And Momoshiki agrees to the terms, and he's basically like, okay, use karma and everything at your disposal to wipe out like the Momoshiki clones and all that. So when Boruto gets that green light, he's using the karma, he's using the giant Rasengan, and he's using like the Byakugan from Momoshiki. The main reason he's doing this is that all of this stuff essentially comes from Momoshiki, right? He can't use the giant Rasengan because he doesn't have the karma like output usually. So he's never really been able to use the giant Rasengan. Now he can use it because he's using Momoshiki's power. And he only can use Byakugan when he's drawing on the karma or if he's possessed by Momoshiki. So now he's able to use Byakugan freely because he has full support from Momoshiki and they're essentially working in tandem. This is the first time within the series that Boruto and Momoshiki have really teamed up for one common goal. So that's the main reason why Byakugan is manifesting. It's not to decanonize Jougan or anything like that. This doesn't mean that Jougan's filler. It means Boruto and Momoshiki have finally teamed up, and Boruto can now use the Byakugan freely because he's now able to draw on things that were essentially Momoshiki exclusive for so long. So that's the main thing. That's the main thing with this chapter. It's to show how Boruto has gotten a power up because he can now use like Momoshiki's skill set at will, right? So where does this leave the Jougan? I still think the Jougan is going to show back up again at some point, but I think that it's going to show up more in line of when the anime might come back, right? So since the Jougan was introduced in the anime, it makes more sense for it to be integrated there and set up there because a lot of the Jougan's like backstory is all within the anime, like stuff with Toneri, giving it to Boruto, and all of that. So I do think like Jougan will get integrated into the manga at some point. I don't see it being integrated until like near the end, right? Like when everything starts popping off with the Otsutsuki and like even potentially if Shibai is able to come into the narrative, I do think that Jougan could manifest then, right? Like Jougan, from what we know about Jougan, it is the power like that. From what we know from Toneri, essentially, Toneri's basically said that the Jougan will be the thing that saves the world, right? It's the star of hope, essentially, for Boruto. So even after like the Jougan's big arc, like at the beginning of like the Boruto anime with Nue and all that, Toneri even basically said it's not the Jougan's time right now. It's essentially going to sleep for a while. And even though we got like brief appearances of the Jougan, those are just like in spurts, right? So so even though like it's shown up recently, I do still think the Jougan is slumbering, waiting for like the right time to manifest. And I don't think the Jougan is really going to be able to manifest until something big like Shibai or somebody showing up like that comes to the forefront, and it's like a power needed that can only take out Shibai, right? So I do think there's more to the Jougan than meets the eye. I think Jougan is going to be the thing that is going to essentially wipe out the Otsutsuki all in all, right? That's why Momoshiki was so scared of it when he saw it manifest briefly in Boruto's eye during their fight in the anime, right? There's more to the Jougan than we know, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Jougan come back within the manga at some point and ending the Jougan is filler allegations. I'm ready for it, man. But I think that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys think about this chapter. How did you guys feel about this chapter as a whole? Did you like it as much as me? And regarding the Jougan, do you guys think it's canon, or are you guys strictly in the camp of it's probably filler? Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe. And as always, I'm going to talk to you guys next time.